All right, you want to learn how to make knives? You want to learn how to use your computer to design those knives? Well, then follow me. Oh, wait. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. How about we do this? How about you follow me using the subscribe button below? That way you'll get updates when new videos come out in this series, and it'll help me out, and who knows, you might even learn something. All right, today I want to share with you how and why I use CorelDraw for knife design. First off, the why. Back in the day, knife makers were forced to use pencil and paper for their design work, and while this still works and a lot of knife makers still use this method, if you want to move to the 21st century and you want a way that's much easier and much quicker, you really want to get yourself a computer graphics program. There's two main graphics program types. There's what's called a bitmap graphics and vector graphics. Bitmap graphics are made up of pixels of different colors such as you find in a photograph. Vector graphics are made up of lines and points along these lines that let you convert them to curves, and then you can shape those lines. An example of a pixel-based program is Photoshop, which of course is the industry standard for photographic work. But I got to tell you, it's not the best choice when designing knives, just a little bit too complicated. A much better option is a vector-based program that will let you work with lines to create the profile of your knives. And then besides profiles, you can create mock-ups of different handle materials that you can show your customers when you're doing a custom job. One other plus of using graphics software is that you can quickly store a profile and retrieve it easily when you need it. When I do this, I just print out the profile on a piece of 110-pound cardstock. Then I take scissors and cut out around the profile, and this makes a template that I can use to trace my outline onto my piece of metal with. I do that with a Sharpie. And this gives me an exact match of the last time I made this particular knife. Now, when it comes to vector programs, there are several options out there with varying pricing, like Inkscape, which is a free program, or on the other end of the price spectrum you have Adobe's Illustrator, which is quite expensive, and now Adobe makes you subscribe to the program through the cloud, charging you a monthly fee for access. In the middle of the road, price-wise, we have CorelDraw, which I'm going to demonstrate today. It's not free, but you can find older versions on eBay reasonably priced. You just need to be sure that whatever version you get is compatible with your operating system. You can find a list of version numbers and operating system compatibility on the CorelDraw wiki page, and I'll put a link in the description below so that you can check it out. The version I'm going to use today is CorelDraw 2018, and I downloaded the trial version and then bought a product key for it on eBay for $35, so it wasn't too expensive. Now for the how of it. Let's open up CorelDraw and take a look at what we need to know to get started. Okay, typically when we open CorelDraw, we're going to get a page that's set up in portrait view. Well, the first thing we want to do is go into layout and change some of these settings for the page, and that's right here under page setup. All right, right now we've got a letter size document open. It's 8.5 by 11. And it's in the portrait mode, so the first thing we want to do is change it to orientation to landscape mode. We do that by clicking this little icon. I like to set a page width of 16 inches for a small knife. It gives me a little extra room. I leave the height at 8.5. That's the default size, and that's fine. Height doesn't really matter for what we're doing here. 300 dpi is good for rendering the resolution. And nothing else we want to do there, so let's click OK. So now we got this long page, and this is so we can set up a knife, because our profiles are usually in this orientation. So let's look at some things here. The rulers. We see we've got rulers at the top and rulers along the side. And this little intersection for the two rulers is where we set our X and Y axis. And we can do that by left clicking and holding this little icon and dragging towards the page. And then when we let go, that sets 0 for those two particular, with the X and Y axis, and sets 0 for those. Now we can come in and bring guidelines down by left clicking and holding in the ruler bar and pulling down, and we can pull it down to 0, such as this. We can also do it in our vertical axis. We can pull a guideline out and let go. And you just click, left click, hold, and drag and drop. All right. Now, if you got one you don't like, you just hover over it. You want to get rid of it, you hover over it, right click, and then you can cut it, and it's gone. Okay, let's see what now. I know we need to look at. We need to look at an item under view, and it's called Snap To. And right now our Snap To is going to set to guidelines. So if we want to go to let's say we want to pull a rectangle out. We use the rectangle tool, and as we get to that intersection, it'll snap right to those guidelines. And then I'm just going to hit the delete key here, and it'll take that item away. Now, since we've got this set to 0, let's do our page as if we're using a piece of Aldo Bruno steel bar that's 1.5 inches wide. And I typically buy steel in 48-inch length, so that's not a concern unless you're designing a sword or something. But if you've never made a knife before, I suggest you stick to something relatively small and nothing fancy. Most newbies want to start with their favorite tactical design or that big ass boy they've seen Nick Wheeler make. But trust me, you're much better off with a small and simple design for your first effort. So we're going to pretend like we've got a piece of Aldo Bruno's 1.5 inch wide 1084 steel. So we're going to go up here and grab another guideline, and I'm holding my left mouse button and pulling down, and I'm going to go down to 1.5 inches and let go of it. So I'm right there, so I'm right at 1.5 inches. All right. We know we got 0 there. We're going to pull another guideline out. We're going to put it in the middle of the page. We're going to delete this one. So if I don't like it, I got to have the little select tool. And I just hover across that line and right click. It comes up. I can cut it. All right. Now I'm going to set 0 to right here. That's the middle of the knife. And typically we're going to want a knife handle that's 4 to 4.5 inches long. So I'm going to grab a guideline over here. Again, I'll just left click, hold, and drag, and we got 4, there's 5, so this would be 4.5, somewhere in this neighborhood. All right, so I let go, and it drops a guideline in there. And then let's say we got our 0 right here. Let's say we want a 6-inch blade. So we're going to come out to 6 inches, drop another guideline. All right, so here's our layout for a 4-inch handle, 4.5 inch handle, 6-inch blade, and we've got our steel that's 1.5 inches wide. Now these are just guidelines. They won't show up on your printout. So we need to make hard lines for this area. So we're going to go over to the rectangle tool, and we're going to click on it. And now as we hover over this corner, it's because we've got snap set, it's going to snap right to that intersection. And we're going to click with our left button and hold and drag it down and across and let go of it. And now we've created a rectangle the size of our piece of steel, or at least the size of our knife, the length of our knife. So what we've got to do now, if we were to try to alter this rectangle in any way, shape, or form, we can make it smaller or bigger. Oops, let's make it bigger. We can pull and drag it this way. We can pull it up there, and it'll snap right to our guidelines. But if we wanted to shape this rectangle, click the shape tool right here and pull this down, and see it just rounds our edges, which is sometimes you might want to do that, but we don't want to do it right now. We're going to go undo, edit, undo, and we're back to our rectangle. We're going to use the select tool, and then we got these nodes out here. And these nodes let us pull this object, pull it out this way, pull it back, or we can pull items this way, we can pull items this way. And when I grab this node, I'm just left clicking and holding and then dropping and dragging it. So again, I'm going to left click, hold it, pull it back to our guideline, pull it back down to our guideline. And now we're going to do something very important. We're going to go up to Object, I believe it is, and we're going to convert this rectangle to curves right there. Convert to curves. You're going to have to do this every time. This is what lets us shape this rectangle. Otherwise, we'd be just rounding the corners anytime we tried to manipulate it. So now that we've got this converted to curves, we're going to go to our shape tool. And you can see when I click on it, it gives us these nodes. And we can add a node anywhere we want. If I want a node right there, I just left click, double left click, and it gives me a node. Now what these nodes are, these are control points. I can click and hold it. I'm left clicking and holding this, and I can drag that node anywhere I want to. If I want to drag it down to the bottom of the page, anywhere I want to. I'm going to drag it to where our knife handle is going to intersect the blade. And we're going to start creating some curves here. So let's pull this down to say the middle of our steel. And this is going to be a drop point hunter. So let's double click there, create a node, and then we're going to drag that node up and let go of it. And then at this point, we're going to right click and select to curve. And when I do that, I get these little arrows that come out. We're going to go here and right click and go to curve. And see, I get these little arrows, and I can pull these arrows and create and transform that line into a curve. All right. Now, you notice it was wanting to snap to that line. So I'm going to go back up here to view, and I'm going to turn the snap off. And we're going to create some more curves. So let's create a curve here. That's the line. See, excuse me. Sometimes you click in the wrong, this line's already been converted to a curve, so it's all I can do is convert it back to a line. So I need to click this one, right click this one, and we can create a curve there. We can pull this down, pull this up. Now this takes a little practice, using these nodes to create curves, but you catch on if you'll practice with it. Now, I've created a little arc to the spine of this knife, and that's what you want. Straight lines, not cool. No bueno. You want curves, everything like a sexy lady, man. We want some curves in here. So we're going to grab this one, bring it back to here maybe. Actually, we can delete this. We delete that one, then we got a curve this way. All right. That's kind of cool. I like that belly in that knife right there in that blade. So this is our handle point. Let's convert this to a curve. Pull our little flags. We can pull this in. Pull this in. Create our flag. So we got a 4.5 inch length. And then I want to put some belly in the handle. So I'm going to do this by putting a node here. We'll convert this one to a curve. And I'm going to pull this up. And that's going to create a little finger troll right there. Do the same thing to this one. Actually to this one. To curve. Alright, and I'm going to pull this up now to create another little finger troll like. And here we can adjust this and leave our belly like that. Alright, if we want to zoom in and take a look at this, our zoom tool. We can zoom in and see a little bit more what we like. We need some more knife here. We need some more steel down at the bottom. So I'm going to go back to the shape tool, click here, and we're going to drag this out and down some. Alright, I'm going to make that tip a little bit sharper. Somewhere in that neighborhood. Yeah, that's looking good. Now see how this flag is coming up this way and this one's kind of turned down? If you'll create those opposite each other, you get a better line. And you can also do that by right clicking and going to smooth. And it'll smooth these lines out for you. Looks like we did a little smoothing here. Let's see what happens if we smooth this. That drops that belly down too much. But see, now that line's parallel with each other. It's looking good. Looking good, looking good. So anyway, that's how we get a basic profile. This can be printed out. You just put some cardstock in your printer and print this out, and then you can go back and take a pair of scissors and cut that outline. All right. And that's your templates that you're going to use to put down on your metal to trace your profile. All right, one other thing I want to show you how to do is set location for your pen or Corby's, whichever you're going to use. In this case, we're going to use 3 holes, three pins, 1/4 inch in diameter. So first thing I want to do is create a 1/4 inch diameter bullseye, I call it. We'll set this to 0. We'll bring another guideline out to a 1/4 inch, although that's probably half. Let's zoom in and see what we got here. Yeah, I missed the 1/4 inch mark a little bit. We can cut this guideline, undo create. We can drag another one out to the 1/4 inch mark. Now, I'm not real concerned about being exact on the diameter of the hole. I just want the bullseye to be correct so that we have a center mark. So let's start with the circle tool. And we'll come out here and create, see the little 3 dashes at the top? I'm going to set that right at the 1/8 inch mark. I'm going to click and hold the left button, hit shift and control at the same time, holding those down. I'm going to drag out diagonally and it'll create my circle. Now I want to put guidelines right through this noid, these 2 noids vertically and these 2 noids horizontally. So I grab a guideline, bring it down, line it up right to the center of that square and let go. And then I got to select the object again. And I come over here and get a guideline this way vertically, set it right to the center of those 2 noids. And now I got my bullseye. Now these are guidelines. These won't print out, so we've got to make hard lines that'll print. So I'm going to go over here and click the hard line, or it's actually the line tool, I guess it's called. We click, just move. We're not having to drag. Just click both ends of the line you want to draw. All right, then we click up here. Don't have to hold it. We just move it and click to the bottom, and it creates that line. So there's our bullseye. Now we're going to take this and we're going to marquee select it, and that we started at the upper corner and we left click and hold and drag across it, and that's how we marquee select something. And we're going to group this together. So we go to object, group, and group objects. So now this is all one object. You can't separate the lines from the circle. You would have to ungroup it to do that. And this just keeps it from accidentally grabbing it and dragging it and not getting the lines too. Anywhere if I go to drag, I'm going to get the entire object. Alright, zoom to page, and we're going to zoom in on the handle and a couple of these guidelines we don't need anymore, so we're going to cut these. Cut. Alright. Now, this line, this guideline here, I think it's probably set, yeah, it's at 3/4 of an inch. That's our forward, that's going to be our forward location for our hole, 3/4 inch. We're also going to have another guideline that's 3/4 inches off the butt of the knife. So we're going to set 0 here. We're going to go 3/4 of an inch here. All right. Now we also want a pin in the center, so if we set 0 there, and we look, we got 3 inches between those 2 holes, so the center would be 1.5 inches. So we're going to grab a guideline, drag it out to 1.5 inches, and there's our location for our 3 holes. Now we're going to zoom out. We're going to grab our little bullseye and bring it down here and just drop it. We're going to zoom back into the handle. All right. And I missed that line, but we can drag it over. Now, here's something you need to learn to do, and it's a little bit tricky. But to copy objects, you want to select the object so that you got all the noise around it, and then you left click with the left mouse button, and you drag to the location you want to copy to, and then while you're still holding the left mouse button, you right click and drop it. And it creates a copy. Let's do that again. Left click, drag, get it to where we want, still holding the left button, right click, and we drop it. So there's our 3 hole locations for our pins. Now at this point, aesthetically, I noticed something that just doesn't look right. Those pins look like they're lined up pretty good, and we can tell if we're in the center. I'll take a rectangle tool and create a little bar here from spine to belly. And see where those 2 noids are? That's where the center of that bar will be. So we're slightly off. Let's see where it is now. I still need to go lower. Lower down just a little bit. See where we're at now. Yeah, now we got that centered. And I'll do that on all 3 of these typically. I'm not going to do it now so just to save time, but you want to make sure you got these holes spaced evenly between the spine and the belly. Now just looking at this, let's delete this bar. There's a delete key. Now just looking at this, the belly just don't quite look right. It looks off center. It looks like we got too much space at the bottom. So aesthetically, I'm going to change this. I'm going to grab this and bring it up some. So it looks like it's closer to being centered. And then I want to create my finger choles a little bit deeper. Bring this one up like this. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Kind of like that. Now what I do at this point is I'd take and print this out on cardstock, and then I'd cut out the outline, and I would glue the template onto a piece of thin wood. You can use paint sticks. They work good as long as your knife's not too wide. Glue that template to the paint stick, and then take a jigsaw and cut out around the edge of it. And then you can hold that in your hand and get a feel for how the handle feels to you, and if you need to make any changes, you can go from there. So that looks pretty good. The only other thing I'd like to show you is if, for whatever reason, you make a knife that's longer than a standard page, because your cardstock's going to come in 8.5 by 11 size sheets. Let's go to layout, go to page setup, and select letter, because that's what size 8.5 by 11 is going to be. Okay, now this knife, if we ignore the guidelines here and we just move this over, it'll probably fit on 8.5 by 11, unless you got your margins are too big and it might cut off part of it. But let's say that we have a knife that's longer than this. Let's just shape this. Bring this out. Bring this out. Now our knife's too long for the page. What I'll do is create a center line, like maybe here, and that's a hard line. And then I'll take and select everything, marquee select, and that's by clicking up in the corner with the left button and dragging and letting go. And then move this, make a copy of this. We'll move it and drag it and click and make a copy. Now, and we can move this up. Now we've got 2 copies of the knife design, and the center lines would match up. Like, so when I print this out, it's going to cut off this part. Whoops, this ain't going to work. I ain't got it quite right. Got to move it so I got the blade. See, now I got the blade on the piece of paper and the handle on the piece of paper. It's going to cut off this part when I print it, and it's going to cut off this part when I print it, but it doesn't matter, because if I cut both these out, I can tile them over top of each other, line the lines up, and just take a piece of tape and tape them together, and now I've got the entire knife profile. And that's how you get, you use 2 pieces of paper, or excuse me, 1 piece of paper to get 1 longer version of the knife. Now if you got 2 pieces of paper that are 11-inch wide, that's 22 inches, so this will let you do a knife up to, say, 21 inches long. We're just using 8.5 by 11 paper, so that's a little tip for that. Anyway, this is where we're going to stop. Now please come back and check out the next video in this series. I'm going to show you how to mock up knife handles, how to make them look like 3D, and use whatever material you're going to use. Like if we want a wooden handle, a maple handle or something like that, you actually use a piece of maple wood, a photograph, and mock this up so that it looks just like the finished knife's going to be, so you can show your customer what you're making for him. Also, by using software, versus the old timers that used to use a piece of pencil, what the fuck me over. Piece of pencil. That's it. A piece of fucking pencil. A piece of fucking work.